Transform. Well, I'm going to talk about transformative use. I'm not going to talk about Google, though, because that case hasn't really been decided yet. But we had a bunch of really super cases this year that do go into why we think things are transformative or how we can be sure they are. And in academia, that really matters to us. This trend with transformative use started in 1994 with a case that was a parody that Bill might have enjoyed standing up here and singing about. It was the Oh Pretty Woman case. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was a song by Roy Orbison that was parodied by a rap group and turned into a song about an Oh Hairy Woman, a prostitute walking down the street. So they did quite a number on Roy's song. The Supreme Court did a number on the people who sued, however, by saying that what the rap group did was transformative. They didn't elaborate different types of transformative fair use, but the court decisions since 1994 are a lot easier to understand if we recognize that there are different types. Now, Pam Samuelson described an approach that I found really useful in an article from 2006 and 2009 called Unbundling Fair Use. It's important to understand, first of all, that these transformative uses are most likely to be fair use when they support free speech, First Amendment values. Second, one might create transformative works, and one might also have transformative purposes in using another's work. And third, the three categories that Samuelson identifies within works and purposes can overlap. Transformative works are the easiest to recognize. They're the parodies, the satires, the appropriation art. These photos show how Jeff Koons adapted an advertisement for selling shoes into a collage that he calls Niagara. The court found that use to be transformative when, as here, the work is used as raw materials in furtherance of distinct, creative, or communicative objectives. The use is transformative. Transformative purposes include productive uses and orthogonal uses. Now, HathiTrust, to whom Bruce referred, is a good example. But first, let me give you some ones that are more familiar, perhaps. These would be uses that promote ongoing authorship. Research uses, including making copies that will be used to inform a critique or a commentary. Copies for news reporting. Quotes to illustrate a point, to demonstrate, to explain. Another example might be making a photograph of a sculpture for an analytical piece. HathiTrust comes into the picture here with transformative uses, where its digital copies of books are used to enable access by the blind and visually impaired. Now again, one might wonder, as Bill did, what's so transformative about making books available for the blind? But that's what we have these days, is a court decision that says it is. It's up on appeal, and we won't know for sure how it's going to come out. It's something to watch, but it's certainly something that a lot of people are cheering. Orthogonal uses are those wholly unrelated to the use made or envisaged by the original author. These are uses for a new audience, for a new purpose. And HathiTrust is again instructive on this point, the point that Bruce raised. Digitizing works to index them for full text search and to enable text mining are the examples we have today. Now again, these are strongest when they support First Amendment values. Let me give you another example to illustrate the differences among these categories. One might critique or comment upon Margaret Mitchell's book, Gone with the Wind, by making a new, creative, transformative work, another novel like The Wind Done Gone, or by writing a scholarly article. Both might be fair uses, but one would rely more on a transformative work, creating a new work, the other on a transformative purpose, a productive use. One might also use her work for an orthogonal purpose by including it in a text mining project, perhaps to discover new information about authors of her era or her genre, which information itself might become the subject of another study. Now, my use of these images is also orthogonal. I use them to provide a visual reference for what many would say are rather subtle nuances that define different aspects of transformative fair use. As an instructor, I like to rely on fair use of visual images to promote understanding of the law among those who want to keep their activities within its sometimes evanescent boundaries. Now, keep in mind that even if a use or a purpose is transformative, the user still must comply with the rest of the requirements for fair use. She must use only so much of the other's work as she needs to achieve her transformative work or purpose, and the benefit of the use to the public must exceed the harm to the copyright owner's normal expectation of commercial exploitation of his work. So with this framework in mind, let's look at what happened in 2013. I chose 3 cases from what was a rich array of results this year with very interesting challenges. First, Ed Sullivan challenged the Jersey Boys, Faulkner challenged Midnight in Paris, and street artist Derek Seltzer challenged rock band Green Day. First, we'll do Ed Sullivan. Sofa Entertainment is the owner of the copyrights to the Ed Sullivan Show. They sued Dodger Productions, the producers of a play about the 60s rock band, The Four Seasons. Dodger used a 7-second clip of Ed Sullivan introducing the band. In the view of the Ninth Circuit, the use was for historical significance. The court noted that the defendants had imbued the clip with new meaning and had done so without usurping whatever demand there was for the original clip. The lower court awarded Dodger's attorney's fees of $155,000 because it viewed Sofa's infringement claim as objectively unreasonable and determined that awarding the fees would deter future lawsuits that might chill the creative endeavors of others. The Ninth Circuit affirmed that award of attorney's fees at the same time that it affirmed the fair use defense. Now, this exemplifies a productive purpose. The Jersey Boys uses a 7-second clip to show, to illustrate, to demonstrate a point in the boys' historical trajectory. Making it on the Ed Sullivan Show was a major accomplishment. In fact, at the time, the Four Seasons viewed it as their best hope for reviving their popularity in the midst of the British invasion. The clip also illustrates an orthogonal use. The new audience, the different expressive purpose, the recontextualizing, all of these give the older content new meaning. The use of this image serves as a visual referent for me to aid you in understanding and retaining the information that this case embodies, the information I'm trying to convey. These actors and their director and producers are taking a risk, and they're making a statement about their right to reference the culture of the 20th century, our culture, for purposes other than the original expressive purpose of the creator of the materials, and for a different audience. And that's what I'm trying to do as well. Now, Faulkner. Has anyone seen this movie? All right, I figured so. Midnight in Paris, Owen Wilson's character, Gil Pender, at one point says, "The past is not dead. Actually, it's not even past," which he attributes to Faulkner, even though it's slightly off. And he goes on to recount a conversation he's just had with the long-dead Faulkner as proof of his assertion. Now, this movie is a comedy. It is filled with literary and artistic allusion. This particular quote describes Pender's problem. It's golden age thinking, the erroneous notion that a different time period is better than the one one's living in. You know, It's a flaw in the romantic imagination of those people who find it difficult to cope with the present. This golden age thinking pervades the film, both in its plot and its theme. Now, Faulkner's point was altogether different. It was about the past catching up with you. And this suggests that the use is orthogonal. It's a productive use as well. In other words, Midnight's director had a transformative purpose. The quote is used to illustrate a point about our attachment to the life of the past, to explain, and this is, as you all know, a rather traditional use of a quote, a short quote. The court elaborates on the orthogonal purpose, however, by going on to say the speaker, time, place, and purpose of the quote in these two works are diametrically dissimilar. And the quote even takes on an aspect of transformative use in the creative sense, in the court's view, and this is where they quote back to the Oh Pretty Woman case, Campbell. The use of these 9 words in Midnight undoubtedly adds something new with a further purpose or different character, altering the first with new expression, meaning, or message. So the quote has been entirely recontextualized, and that itself is what's transformative. Now, the third case relies on a creative use, not the purpose we've been talking about so far. Seltzer v. Green Day. So photographer Richard Staub had earlier taken a photograph of a wall that was just plastered with Derek Seltzer's street art. And when he was later hired by Green Day to create a video for the group that would play during a live performance, he built a set that included an image that was inspired by Seltzer's work. The video actually filmed a series of artists coming onto the set, adding art to the wall, and then exiting. So the film was the creation of the wall. Finally, the video played as the backdrop for a single song in a Green Day performance. And these 3 photographs illustrate the process of that transformation. Now, interestingly, in this case, the plaintiff actually helped the defendant make his case. Seltzer complained about how much Green Day had changed his work, how horribly they had deformed it, and how they had changed its meaning to be almost the opposite of what he had intended. Well, of course, these qualities are precisely what made it transformative and a fair use, even though Green Day used the whole of his image. Further, it was clear that Seltzer would never have given permission for this. So Green Day had no option but to rely on fair use. And importantly, the use supports a free speech value. And finally, the harm to Seltzer was, by his own admission, minimal, in that he never would have licensed the work. So the value to the public far outweighed the harm to Seltzer. So what does this mean for us in academe? Well, of course, being from academe myself, I see very positive implications for scholars, but also for their publishers, for artists and their distributors, for actors, poets, their directors, and their producers, and of course for instructors. These cases are very good news for all of us who are involved in the creation, dissemination, and discussion of works. They give us all room to move, and this is what fair use is supposed to do. As the court in the Jersey Boys case said, it was quoting an earlier fair use decision, an overzealous monopolist can use his copyright to stamp out the very creativity that the act seeks to ignite. To avoid that perverse result, Congress codified the doctrine of fair use. So fair use requires of us as copyright owners that we not hold so tightly to our views about what we can or should control. Copyright is porous on purpose. The law gives us all these freedoms, and our society is a lot better off when creators are not afraid to take full advantage of them.